So uh, if you've been watching the markets lately, I mean, really watching over the last few years, you know that the AI rally has just changed everything.
Completely. Yeah, it's created new giants, reshaped whole industries, sent valuations soaring. It's been incredible to watch.
And now, all that energy, that financial momentum, it seems like it's fully spilled over from AI into quantum computing,
Right?
which is, let's be honest, a much more complex, maybe even speculative world right now.
Exactly. And you can feel it, can't you? Investors are hunting for that next big thing, the Nvidia of quantum.
Right.
And there's one company that's really captured a lot of attention and, crucially, a lot of cash. IonQ.
IonQ, yeah, they're definitely seen as a leader, a top contender. And you get the sense they believe it too. Their CEO has basically said it out loud, hasn't he?
He has, explicitly suggesting they want to replicate NVIDIA's kind of foundational dominance, but, in the quantum arena.
And now that they have this huge war chest to actually try and do it.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We really need to look closely at IonQ, try to cut through some of the hype,
Okay.
understand the potential, which is genuinely revolutionary, but also the sheer scale of the funding they've raised, and importantly, the hurdles, the big challenges, technical and commercial, that they absolutely have to overcome.
Right. If they're going to deliver on what is, frankly, a pretty audacious ambition.
Very audacious.
So let's start with the promise, because that's what underpins everything, all those zeros on the funding checks. Quantum computing. I mean, if you're not deep into it, it sounds like something out of science fiction, doesn't it?
It really does. It's using quantum mechanics, the really weird rules of physics, for tiny, tiny things to do calculations way faster than any normal computer we have today.
Automatically faster.
Oh, yeah. And there was this aha moment, maybe late last year, from Google Alphabet's quantum team.
What was that?
They had an experimental chip, a quantum chip, perform a specific calculation in like under 5 minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes. That sounds fast, but maybe not universe-changing. What's the context? How would a normal supercomputer handle that?
Ah, well, that's the mind-bending part, that exact same calculation. For the most powerful supercomputers we have now, it would take them longer than the entire universe has existed to finish.
Longer than...
Wow, okay. Yeah, so it's not just faster, it's a completely different scale of computing power. An exponential leap.
That right there, that's the dream IonQ is selling. Building a platform, a sort of quantum cloud, to harness that power for actual commercial use.
New materials, drug discovery, logistics, finance, the potential applications are huge.
And it's a big but. We have to hit the reality check pretty hard here. Because the tech, as it stands today, is, well, it's shaky, isn't it?
It is, yeah, very much so. For all that amazing potential, quantum computers right now are incredibly temperamental.
How so?
They're super sensitive to everything. Temperature, tiny vibrations, stray magnetic fields, and that means they make a lot of errors. They're unreliable.
So you can have lots of these quantum bits, these qubits, but if they're constantly messing up the calculation...
Then the result is useless. Exactly. So progress isn't just about speed or qubit count, it's about accuracy, fidelity.
Right. Getting more qubits that work reliably with fewer errors, that's the real benchmark. High-fidelity qubits.
That's the language of success right now, yes.
And that technical challenge, that instability, makes IonQ's financial story even more.
Yeah, fascinating. And maybe a bit strange.
It does. Let's shift from the physics to the finances, because this is where the money riddle really kicks in.
They've raised an absolutely staggering amount of money, based almost entirely on that future promise we just talked about.
Staggering is the right word. They recently sold, get this, $2 billion in new shares.
$2 billion. For a company in a field that's barely commercialized.
$2 billion. Yeah, just think about that infusion of cash.
That feels, I don't know, less like a simple vote of confidence and more like a massive land grab. Like they're trying to corner the R&D funding now. It certainly has that kind of strategic feel to it. And that sale brought their total cash on hand up to around $3.5 billion.
$3.5 billion. That's not just operating cash. That's a war chest.
A huge war chest.
Okay, let's unpack this. $3.5 billion sounds like, an infinite runway. Enough cash to just keep working until they crack the code.
It sounds like it. But then you connect that massive pile of cash to where the company actually is today, commercially speaking.
And the numbers don't quite line up, do they?
Not really. There's a big gap. Look, right now, almost all quantum computing use is still just for research. There's very little real commercial application yet.
So IonQ isn't making much money from customers.
Relatively speaking, no. Their forecast, their guidance for full year 2025 revenue is only about $110 million.
Okay, hang on. $3.5 billion in the bank, chasing $110 million in revenue next year.
Right.
That's quite the ratio. What about their spending? How fast are they burning through cash?
Oh, very quickly. Just their operating activities burned through over $208 million in the first 9 months of this year alone.
Whoa. So burning roughly twice what they expect to make next year.
Yeah. So you zoom out, burning cash fast, low current revenue, but they have enough cash stacked up to cover their current burn rate for, well, something like 30 years, theoretically.
That just reinforces the idea that this money isn't about short-term survival. It's strategic. It's about dominance.
Exactly. It buys them insulation from needing to hit quarterly revenue targets. They can focus purely on the long-term R&D, on hitting that technical breakthrough.
It's an insurance policy.
A very expensive insurance policy against the timeline uncertainty. It lets them fund ambitious projects, maybe even acquire smaller tech companies.
Yeah.
Money buys time, sure, but even $3.5 billion doesn't guarantee they win, does it?
No. It just guarantees they get to stay at the table long enough to see if winning is even possible.
Right. And that winning, that whole game, is clouded by uncertainty. Which brings us neatly to the first big hurdle, just figuring out the commercial side.
We know quantum can be powerful, but the sources we looked at really stress how extremely early it is. It's hard to know how or even when developers can build reliable, profitable applications on this tech.
And you see that uncertainty reflected everywhere, especially in the forecasts for market size and timing. The opinions are just all over the place.
Okay, give us the range. What's the super optimistic view?
Well, on the high end, you've got research, like from McKinsey and Company. They reckon the quantum computing market, which was maybe $4 billion last year, could explode to $72 billion by 2035.
72 billion. Wow. That's nearly an 18-fold increase in about a decade. Okay, that explains the investor hype.
Absolutely. That's the number fueling the frenzy.
But what's the other side saying? The more cautious take.
Well, what's fascinating here is the disagreement among the big players. You have tech leaders pumping the brakes quite a bit.
Like who?
Like Google's CEO, Sundar Pichai. He estimated earlier this year that truly practical, error-corrected quantum computers, they're still maybe 5 to 10 years away.
Wait. McKinsey says $72 billion by 2035. But the CEO of Google, which has a major quantum effort, says we're 5 to 10 years from just having a practical machine?
Yep.
That's a massive difference in outlook. Someone's going to be way off on that timeline.
That gulf is the market risk right there. And while IonQ navigates that uncertainty, waits for the market to show up, they're also facing intense competition now.
Because if that $72 billion prize is real,
then IonQ isn't going to have the field to itself, not by a long shot. They're up against companies with incredibly deep pockets who are already heavily invested.
and we're talking about the biggest names in tech, aren't we? The sources list them out: Alphabet, Amazon.
IBM, Microsoft, even Nvidia itself, all pouring resources into quantum.
So it's not just about innovating faster, it's a structural fight against giants.
And it's not just about money either, it's about the type of technology they're betting on. This gets a bit technical, but it's important. IonQ uses something called ion trap technology, basically trapping individual atoms, ions, with lasers and fields and doing the computing on them.
Right.
This approach tends to produce higher fidelity qubits, meaning fewer errors, which is good, but historically it's been really hard to scale up to get lots and lots of trapped ions working together.
So their advantage is quality, but the challenge is quantity.
Kind of, yeah. Now contrast that with rivals like IBM and Google. They mostly use superconducting chips. These are generally easier to manufacture, easier to scale up to more qubits, but they tend to have higher error rates.
Yeah.
And they need insane cooling systems, like colder than deep space refrigerators.
So IonQ made a big bet on ion traps. High quality, but maybe harder to scale. That's a differentiator, but also
a massive strategic risk.
Absolutely.
They need their quality advantage to be so significant that it overcomes the quantity advantage their rivals might achieve sooner.
Which completely reframes the challenge. They need superior performance, potentially against rivals who might just overwhelm the market with sheer qubit numbers, even if they're less perfect.
Exactly. And this whole competitive dynamic leads us to what might be the biggest risk of all for IonQ, the ecosystem challenge.
Right. How they actually reach customers.
Precisely. Think about how IonQ makes that $110 million in revenue we mentioned. How do people access their quantum computers right now?
They sell access through the big cloud platforms, don't they?
Yes, through Amazon's AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud. That's their main route to market today. They're essentially renting out time on their machines via these platforms,
Okay, I see where this is going. They're partnering with the gatekeepers.
who are also their biggest competitors.
Yeah.
Amazon, Microsoft, Alphabet, they're all pouring billions into developing their own quantum computers.
Oh.
So as the tech matures, what stops those cloud giants from saying, thanks, IonQ, but we've got our own now, and cutting them off, prioritizing their internal quantum divisions?
Denying IonQ access to potentially millions of developers and customers on their clouds.
Wow. It's a classic platform risk. We've seen it before, haven't we? In early computing, smartphones, the platform owner often ends up capturing most of the value.
Squeezing out the specialized hardware players.
That's the tightrope IonQ is walking, dependent on partners who are simultaneously their fiercest, best-funded competitors.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because that forces some fundamental strategic questions for IonQ, doesn't it?
Huge questions, like can they actually build a viable business outside those big cloud ecosystems? Is $3.5 billion enough to build their own direct path to customers, bypassing the gatekeepers?
And will that bet on ion trap quality really pay off against the scale of superconducting chips from IBM or Google?
Right. And the ultimate question, if or when this market matures and it starts coming down to price, which often happens with tech.
Can IonQ, this specialized quantum company, survive a price war against trillion-dollar companies like Amazon or Microsoft who could basically give away quantum access just to lock users into their broader cloud services?
That's the existential threat, isn't it? Technology leader versus ecosystem gatekeeper.
It's a tough spot.
The silver lining, again, is that $3.5 billion. It means that they don't have to panic today. They don't need to engage in price wars right now. They've bought themselves runway. Time to let the technology mature, time to prove their high-fidelity approach is truly superior.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize this. IonQ has the money, that huge $3.5 billion pile of cash, to chase this really ambitious goal, becoming the Nvidia of quantum. But achieving that means fighting against enormous skepticism about when this market actually arrives, wrestling with a core technology that's still fundamentally unreliable.
And competing against rivals who are not only giants, but also currently their essential partners. Rivals with resources that, frankly, dwarf even IonQ's war chest.
It's a complex picture.
It is. I think the key takeaway from looking at all this is pretty clear. The money means IonQ gets to play the game. They might even set the pace for R&D for a while. But the timeline uncertainty, the question of real-world commercial applications, and that looming ecosystem battle, those are the factors that will decide if they actually win the game in the long run. The cash just buys them a seat at the table.
We've heard the forecasts, the $72 billion by 2035, the 5 to 10-year caution from Google. But the real turning point, the thing that validates all this investment, probably won't just be lab results showing more qubits.
No, probably not. And that's the final thought maybe we can leave you with. What you should really be watching for isn't just internal progress updates from IonQ or their rivals. Look for the external validation. What specific real-world application suddenly becomes possible thanks to quantum? Something beyond pure academic research.
Like what? Give me an example.
Maybe discovering a material that superconducts at room temperature, or designing a life-saving drug molecule in weeks instead of years. Cracking some previously unbreakable code, that kind of breakthrough.
Something tangible that instantly proves the value and shifts the whole timeline.
Exactly, that one concrete game-changing application. That's the signal you should be watching for next. That's what would truly validate the billions being poured into this space.